Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live again from Film Fanatic headquarters. It is 11:35, March 4th. Hope everyone's doing good. Um, so I just finished up the final video. I've been at it for like almost 2 weeks, maybe a little less, and that is watching all of the movies tied to my favorite franchise of all time, Friday 13th. Super cool. I go through all of the movies at least once a year. It's one of those things. When it comes to Friday 13th, I'm kind of like a crackhead. I can never just have one experience. I can never just every now and then, of course, it happens where I'm like craving a movie and I'm like, I kind of want to watch the final chapter, or I kind of want to watch the very first one, or what have you, or Jason Goes to Hell or something. And that will happen, and then I'll watch it, and then I'm like, oh fuck, I gotta watch every movie. So that is a normal thing for me, of where I'll just, you know, every year I'll watch every movie. I have all of the movies. So, and it all started again this year with going to see. It was about 2 weeks, just about 2 weeks ago already, which is hard to believe. I had gone with some friends to see Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D at Black Bear Cinema in Orono, which is an amazing theater. I really love it. Next week, which is also lands on a Friday 13th, they're going to be showing at the Black Bear Cinema. They're going to be showing the final chapter, which pretty much is my favorite. It's a close tie between chapter four, fi- or chap I should say part four, chapter the final chapter, and also Jason Goes to Hell. Those two movies are pretty much my favorite, and it's a tight close race. So I'm really excited. The Black Bear Cinema, we went there and we talked to the manager, and he was saying that well, before the movie actually started, he gave a little talk, and he said that that's the plan for what they're going to do at the cinema, is they're going to show every movie in the franchise on Friday 13th, which is awesome. So there's going to be obviously a gap of time in between each movie. So I think that's the greatest thing ever. So I'm super excited. So I will go see Friday 13th Chapter 4. I'm pretty sure I can go, which won't be tomorrow, but the week after, or actually Friday, on the 13th. So super excited. It's a beautiful theater, state of the art, really beautiful sound, the whole thing, the whole 9 yards. So I'm super pumped, and I'll definitely, of course, do a review of that experience, because the only movie up until going to see Part 3 in 3D, which was amazing. The only movie I actually saw as a kid was Jason Lives, part part 5. So, or part 6, sorry. That was, and I was really, 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 really young when I saw that. I was a kid, basically, a baby. That was the only movie I saw in the theater when it came out. So, seeing now, and it's a thing. I think it's a pretty big trend, but I think it's awesome, where a lot of these older films, classic films, they a lot of these companies are re-releasing them in the theater, and it's amazing. And I've seen so many great films in that way. So very, very excited about that, and I'll definitely do a show on that experience, of course. One other new thing that's going to be coming up, and I'm not going to go into any details or talk about even what the title of the movie is, any of the filmmakers, or anything around this event. I'm going to keep it hush hush until everything is kind of set in place, the timing is right, and everything's confirmed, and all those things. But recently, I met a filmmaker who lives in Maine, who is essentially a horror filmmaker. He also does a lot of kind of comedy based kind of skits or short films. So I met him through a project that I'm kind of doing with his wife, and we kind of realized, wow, we have a lot of the same interest in movies and all these things. And I knew going forward and working on this project that they are both filmmakers, and they're both really into film. And so we've had conversations a lot about film, and and a lot of conversations about horror and music and things. So over the course of a couple of months or so, I found out that this guy had a new film that, and he's done. This is not his. He's done multiple other projects, and so this is a like a full length feature that he just finished, and he is going to be premiering it in a film festival that's going to be in Maine in a few months. So, and it seems like this festival will be like primarily a horror festival, focusing on like pretty low budget horror movies, which is, all I'm all about that. So we were talking about that, and I was like, this sounds really cool, really interesting. And he sent me a few weeks after that. He sent me a trailer for this movie that he had finished, and that's going to be part of this festival. And I was totally blown away by this trailer. It was like I couldn't believe how crazy it looked, and just it looked completely insane. So, and I was like, this is amazing. And then so after that, we were talking a little bit more, and then I was like, this sounds like an amazing event, and I was congratulating him. So we talked a little bit more about that, and then I said, well, what do you think? For what it's worth, if you want to, I'd love to, do a one-on-one interview, maybe to, help do a little bit of promotion for this festival and for your film, and maybe do a one-on-one interview. And then he got back to me saying, yeah, that's a really great idea. And then he had this other idea of like getting a group of the other filmmakers all together and doing a group kind of interview. So I was like, yeah, let's do it. And so we're slowly putting that together as to when we'll do the interview, and all those things, which will be really really cool and exciting. And then about a week ago, less than a week ago, he sent me a screener of the film, because the movie is not obviously it has not been released. It won't be released for a little bit of time, so of course I'm not going to do a review or talk about the movie in any kind of detail. I'm not even going to mention the name, just kind of talking about the general situation. And so I watched the film, and I almost fell out of my chair. I think it was super super gonzo crazy, and I'm like, this is great. This is like totally my my jam. This is like the style I love. So really excited about that. We're slowly working on, probably in the next couple of weeks, we'll set up probably set up a time to do the interview with everyone involved, the other filmmakers as well. Then I'll also do, when we get closer to time and when I get the kind of the green light, and I'll do a review on this film. So really really cool. This is like a new kind of situation. I never been in a situation where I got like a secret screener through a movie, which is really really cool. So yeah, stay tuned for that. So I'm pretty excited about putting this all together. I really miss doing the interview segments. I'm trying to do more of them, but obviously they are a little bit more complicated. I had some interview segments kind of loosely scheduled in the past few months, but it got really tough with scheduling, and also sickness, people getting sick. So, so it will eventually happen. But I haven't done an interview segment in a wicked long time, and it is something I need to do, and it's something I want to do more of. So stay tuned for that at some point. So what of course, one of the things I'm always doing is trying to think of new ideas, new videos, new kinds of formats. Lately, I've been doing these deep dive videos, and it's been super cool. I've been finishing up doing the Friday 13th movies. I pretty much am. I guess I'm more or less finished with the movies that I have been watching. I kind of watched a lot of these movies more or less kind of out of order, which was kind of a cool idea, and it made me realize, of course, when you're tackling a franchise and you have, four movies, five movies, maybe more, in Friday 13th's case, many more. So, you have the timeline, and there, it makes sense to watch the movie knowing, kind of the mythology behind the characters, the story. But I do think, watching all of the movies, and I did kind of start at order. I basically started with part 4, or the final chapter, part 4, and then kind of went through the rest of those movies, and then kind of went backwards. And the last movie I finished, which was last night, was Jason X, which I really, really love. It's a movie I was always like, it's okay, it's pretty decent. Now I absolutely love it. It's such a killer movie. It actually has the highest, which I didn't realize, but in all of the Friday 13th movies, for all of the Friday 13th movies in the franchise, it actually has the highest body count, which is wild. So there you go. So that was the last movie I watched, and I just finished up the video of my deep dive series. These are all movies, obviously, I have talked about before and have covered, but I've been trying to do these, deep dive videos where I'm kind of diving in a little bit deeper and trying to, find out a little bit more about the nitty gritty, the nuts and bolts as to like how some of these movies got made, and going into, with a lot of the actors, the producers, the directors, trying to talk more about those aspects, which I haven't really done before. A little bit more detail oriented kind of stuff. And some of the videos are, because of that, the videos are obviously longer. They're about, to an hour to 45 minutes. So it's been fun. And I've been, learning, even though, again, this series it's my favorite franchise of all time. I've been learning, I've learned a lot more, I've been learning a lot of new things about these movies, considering, which to me is always great and surprising, because these movies, the Friday the 13th franchise has been a part of my life for forever, literally. So, yeah. Anyway, I am kind of in the process too of starting another new series with Friday 13th, and I wanted to kind of do this series on where I'm going to talk about all of the different actors throughout the many years and many movies who have played Jason Voorhees. So it was kind of inspired by this documentary. I did a review on this documentary, and I've talked about this documentary quite a few times. I got this. It's a DVD documentary, and I got this DVD. Phew, quite a few years ago. Probably like 7 years ago at this point. There used to be a really great video store in Camden, Maine. Now we only have Opera House Video, the only video store in the entire state. But at one time, back 7 or 8 years ago, probably even longer than that, there was Opera House Video has been around forever. 30 years probably. Now they've been around forever. A few different owners. the original owners passed away, which was really unfortunate. They were such nice people, but then people who, people the some of the people who owned or who actually worked at the store bought the place, and then it went from there. But ever since I can remember, that video store has been around. I remember even, when I was in college coming up here to Maine, and I was still like at college. I wasn't living in Maine yet, but my folks were discovering Opera House Video, and they were, going strong then. And the world was a very different place then. Video stores were still video rental places for VHS, and this was like right as DVDs were starting to hit, the late 90s. So it became this new, there was like a big interest. It was kind of this new thing, and people were pretty excited about it before all of the streaming platforms that are now available and all those things. But I remember going to Opera House Video even back then, and I was just like, this is such a cool place. And then when I eventually moved to Maine, I became a member there, and I used to go there all the time. Became really good friends with the owners. They were super nice. They were wild and crazy people. I got turned on to so many cool movies through Doug, the original owner, and his wife. The other thing that's so funny was that they used to have in the back. They used to have a giant porn section, a huge section, and that was like a big thing for years. And then when the new owners bought it, that was the first thing they gutted and got rid of, which was a shame. But yeah, long history. But when I bought this movie, it was, part of a, well, definitely, definitely a sign of the times. But they're the video shop that I got this movie from, as well as a bunch of other DVDs. I have a ton of DVDs that I've gotten at both of these shops. But both, when I got this movie, I got it really cheap, and it was a going out of business sale, because at one point, Opera House Video has been around forever and is still going strong. Totally like the last man standing. But at one point there was Harbor Out Video, which was a really great video store, video shop in Camden, Maine. That was really great. They had such an awesome selection. At that time, I was really, and I still love those kinds of movies a lot, but I don't watch them as much. Every now and then I do, and the genre is huge, bigger probably now than it's ever been, and I don't stay up on a lot of those releases just because I'm more into other things now, but I still really love those kinds of movies. But they had an amazing documentary selection and a lot of great foreign films. I really love most of the movies I watch are really technically foreign films. But they had a huge selection for documentaries and foreign films. It was, pretty amazing. Pretty decent horror selection. But during that time when I would go there, I used to get tons of documentaries and tons of foreign films. So, and they had a big selection. It was a really big shop. And then also during that time, there used to be, which was a franchise, movie gallery. Gallery was in Belfast as well. And that was a big, big giant shop. And I remember the day when, the writing was on the wall, and things were, things were shifting and changing with the economy, and then streaming was coming, and both of those shops both announced that they were going to be closing their doors. And I remember going to both of those shops and just buying a shit ton of DVDs, walking out with like handfuls of movies. And it was great. I felt excited. And a lot of movies I had seen through those shops that I got turned on to, but it was also like sad and depressing. It was like going to this funeral. And then that was it. And Opera House Video is still going. But at HAV, Harbor Out Video in Camden, this was one of those movies that I got. It was really cheap. The documentary itself is absolutely shit. The documentary sucks. I think it's super cheesy and really, it's really terrible and really cheesy, and it doesn't really give you any real interesting information. But the thing that's really cool about this DVD, and why I actually watch it all the time. I don't watch the documentary because it sucks, but there's a really great special features thing on here where they interview every actor who has played Jason Voorhees, and they have these really cool kind of unedited, uncut interviews, like where they sit down, filmmakers sit down with each actor and just kind of talk about how they got the role and their experiences, and you know, they're just real candid thoughts about the whole experience, and it's really great, really interesting, and it's cool because they talk to every actor up until the very last Friday 13th with Derek Mears, and so it's super super cool. I actually have seen that segment a billion times. I just find it really interesting. And I haven't really seen that segment included in any other packages as far as I'm sure it's out there maybe in a box set or two, but it's not in the box set that I have, the Friday 13th box set. It's not part of that. And I don't see the interviews. They do have interviews in the box set with a lot of the actors who played Jason Voorhees, but they're different. This is a little bit, this came out in like 2010, I think, right after the last movie. So it's great. It's really great, and I'm sure there's an edition of the film. I'm sure on 4K or Blu-ray because there has or have been a few releases of variations of the movies in box set form, and I'm sure you know it might be or it's probably included in in one of those box sets, this interview, but it's so killer. So what I did, which this DVD totally inspired, was like, okay, I think what I'm gonna do, and it's gonna be kind of a loose series, and I think I'm gonna try to do all of try to do it where I'm gonna cover all of the actors, but I think I'm gonna do multiple shows on doing a video on each actor who has played Jason Voorhees, because I was like, okay, that's cool. So that's what today's show is going to be. Basically, the first one to start things off. And the first actor, Ari Lehman, is the first guy who technically played Jason in the very first Friday the 13th movie. He was like 10 or 11 years old when he played Jason. It's kind of funny because Ari, out of all of the actors I feel that have played Jason Voorhees, it seems like Ari Lehman is like the most out there in the world. Like he does all kinds of conventions. He definitely enjoys. It's very obvious. He's very, very proud. He enjoys the limelight. He's kind of this rock star guy. Has this whole kind of persona, but he definitely is. He puts himself out there. He's at all kinds of conventions for Friday 13th, all the time. He's like made himself into a celebrity. I always think it's kind of funny because, and I think he's great and he's really worth talking about. But I always think it's kind of funny because, when you look at his actual performance in Friday 13th, he's literally in the movie for like 2 seconds, and he's made, and great for him. That's awesome. But he was literally in the movie for 2 minutes, and off of those 2 minutes, he has built an entire fucking career. Everything. Becoming an actor. He's acted in a lot of different films. He's also a musician. He has a pretty interesting life and a big career. But it's kind of funny, and I've seen that happen where I've seen interviews with other actors who have played Jason, of where they actually play Jason as a character in the full movie, and they have sometimes referred to, they I don't know, they kind of think without sounding rude, they sometimes refer to Ari Lehman's like whole thing as kind of being maybe a little bit overblown, a little bit like I don't know, a little bit just that he gets all of the attention. just kind of funny, but good on him. I mean, he's capitalizing on the success. His name is part, and he is in one of the most iconic slasher movies of all time, and also the start to one of the most well known and loved franchises of all time. So, and one of the most influential. So good on him. You can't shit on him too much for that. It's wild. After obviously the massive success that Ari Lehman had, and he was a little kid when he made Friday 13th. There's a lot of great interviews. There's a really great interview with him on here. He talks about being this little kid and trying to, like, realizing that this is an amazing chance, once in a lifetime chance to, like, really build a career. And his interactions with Tom Savini, the makeup effects guys, and trying to really take what he did really, really seriously. And then he talks a lot about his interactions with, like, Kevin Bacon, and really funny, really interesting. But he went on to, and he's still, like, pretty much in the spotlight all the time. I mean, he's still in. Again, like I said before, he's in. Anytime there is a horror convention and there's going to be a coverage on Friday 13th franchise, he is always there. He's always the guy. He's been in every panel, every Q&A panel that I've ever seen online. And he went on to be in to be involved with many other movies after that. A lot of low budget films. Clown Motel, Spirits Arise in 2019, The Barn in 2016, The Barn Part 2, and then he was also in a movie I talked about before, Manny's Orphans in '78, which was directed, and that was also directed by Sean Cunningham. He was also in The Lurker in 2019, The Demented in 2021. So he's, like, still pretty prolific. I mean, it's pretty wild. He was in The Camp Killer. He also makes an appearance in a different kind of. It's not the Eli Roth version, but there's a movie called Thanksgiving, and I thought maybe it was the Eli Roth slasher film that came out a couple of years ago. But this is a different film, but under the same name, from 2006. Other films that he has been involved in: Vampire the movie, Phantom Fun World, a lot of, like, uber low budget kind of horror, more like newer, kind of, I guess you could say, like, real low budget indie horror films, kind of in the exploitation world. He also has had a pretty big career in the music industry as well. In 2004, Lehman started a punk metal band, and he used the name. First, pretty funny, but Harry Lehman started this punk metal band in 2004, which is not all that long ago, but quite a few years ago. And the name of the band is called First Jason. Yeah, that's pretty funny. They released two independent albums. Jason is Watching in 2009 with Chuck Lesowitz, Nefarious from Chicago death metal band Macabre, which is pretty wild, playing bass, and also Amit Shamir Cleaver from New York hardcore punk band the Cro-Mags on drums. Heed My Warning in 2013, and the album was kind of described by Uber Rock, which was a review or a magazine, as a brand of thinking man's horror themed rock. He also performed vocals for the acoustic version of the song "Thank God It's Friday" from the album Ice Nine Kills. Lehman has also composed and performed and recorded a number of soundtracks for independent films, including Alexia Anastasia's critically acclaimed all-female Salome and various vampire films. Vampire the Movie, which won a 2007 Rondo Award for Best Independent Feature. Pretty wild, pretty interesting. So again, like you see him, and I've seen him in so many things. Even as of probably 3 or 4 months ago. I mean, because that's a constant thing. The Friday 13th franchise is, you could say it's bigger. It's bigger now than it's ever been, and it just seems like it's and when you think that it's been so many years since a new movie has been made, and since 2009. Just recently I saw a coverage of a Q&A at a horror convention, and Eric Lehman was there talking about the movie. So it's wild, but really interesting, real kind of an interesting character, and really has built a career off of just this one movie, and has really milked it, but rightfully so. I mean, it built him. It gave him everything, really. Just those, I don't know, 3 minutes on screen for, and it just happened to be, those 3 minutes happened to be in one of the most iconic slasher movies of all time. For in the beginning of what would become one of the biggest franchises ever. It's wild, just in general. So really, really cool. So thanks again, and we will see you next time. Peace.